John Patton, the Tennessee State Director for the American Federation for Children, AFC, here in Tennessee. And we have just wrapped up an exciting session where we got some legislative wins that you've probably heard about, hopefully via email or on social media. And today I'm excited to do another choice chat with a parent advocate from Williamson County, and her name is Trisha Lucente, and she's here with us today. So welcome, Trisha.
Hi, John. Thanks so much for having me. Really excited.
Absolutely. It's so good to have you, and good to get back and doing some choice chats. Session kind of throws our schedules off, this session especially because it was a little bit crazy, but it's good to be talking with real life parents and people who are out there trying to both find the ideal school for their child, but also advocate for all parents to be able to do so. So I think, I guess, first question for our audience, Trisha, is I'd love to hear a little bit about just kind of who you are, a little bit about your family, your children, and maybe how long you've been here in Williamson County, and what brought you to Tennessee.
Sure. So I'm a mom in Williamson County, and I have a 7-year-old little boy, and only one. He was, let's see, we moved to Franklin, my husband and I, 12 years ago now. We've been here, and we moved here for the schools way before we even had a child. We moved here for the schools. And we love Williamson County and we love Franklin, but we put our son in kindergarten last year, and we were really under impressed with the schools. And then we started learning a little bit more about some of the things they were teaching and some of the way they're teaching certain things. And that kind of led me down a rabbit hole into meeting with other parents and, learning more. And then I spent about 8 months reading the entire K through 5 English language arts curriculum in Williamson County, Wit and Wisdom. And that's just really snowballed into, I started Parents' Choice Tennessee, and which is all about advocating for parents' rights and for parents to have a voice in what's going on in our schools. Because I also found that when you bring up concerns with teachers and mostly administration and mostly school board, because the teachers are doing the best that they can, it's higher than that where they're not listening to parents and they're not working with parents. And so in that whole journey of kind of advocating for better curriculum, it also became, how did we get here and why aren't there more options? And, why isn't there more charter schools? Why aren't there more private schools? And that entire journey started right when we put our son in kindergarten, because we were not involved in politics, involved in anything before that until, I guess fall 2020.
Yeah.
2020. Yeah.
So I guess kind of at a high level, and we don't have to get into super specific issues, but kind of like what, in terms of curriculum issues, kind of what was just really not working for you, for your family, and for your son?
It's the age appropriate. So they are not teaching what I think is age appropriate material. And there's always a huge argument, and people throw out a lot of like hot button words, I would say, or phrases. But when you boil it down, they're teaching things that are way too advanced and mature for really small children. And that includes like violence. And that was something that bothered me the most, is some of the sadness and the violence. And at the same time, you have kids that aren't learning how to read and that aren't reading on grade level, yet they can tell you a lot about their feelings, and yet they're learning more about political literacy than I would say actual literacy. And that's where I have the biggest problem, because there's a lot of topics and there are a lot of really mature subjects brought to small children that are things that, a parent should be talking to a small child about, that are,
yeah.
And I think that it kind of brings a divide in the family, when school is the one teaching your child morals and values and empathy and how to be a person. I think that's the problem. I think there's a big problem with that.
Yeah. I don't know when it happened, and I'm not a curriculum or child development expert, but I'm not sure when it happened that educating younger children moved from I mean, from a development perspective, learning facts, memorizing the presidents, phonics, and it moved more to let's understand broader sort of structural, conceptual things that they're just not ready for.
Right.
And those younger years are actually for learning facts, building up a library of not just learning facts, but building up a library of knowledge, because then as you do mature and develop middle school, high school, and beyond, then you can begin to synthesize and to ask questions and to put things together.
Right.
I don't know how that happened or when that happened, but you experienced it up close and personal.
Yes. Yeah. And when you watch it in real time into a very tight, our son's very smart and he is very chatty. So you can ask him a lot of questions. And when you see it in real time, all of a sudden your kids start changing the way they're asking questions and asking you things that you thought a 6-year-old or 5-year-old would never ask you. It's concerning, and it definitely brought a lot of questions. And I read a lot of books since that time started.
Yeah.
Like I said, it started a rabbit hole. It really did.
And I'm also guessing that in order to change a K-5 curriculum in a fairly large school district is like turning an aircraft carrier. Like it happens very slowly. It probably takes years to make a change or a switch.
Well, it's taught in 33 counties in the state. So that curriculum. So our goal and our hope would be if we could prove that it was breaking certain laws, which it is very clearly, then they would have to change it in all 33 counties. And as you can imagine, it is really very hard to do. And there are a lot of people that are on our side in it, so to speak, that believe when they see like how bad it really is. But at the same time, a lot of those people are not the decision makers. So it's kind of having to get everybody to speak up. And it's really hard to do that. People are worried about what people will think. And I have so many parents come to me and say, okay, I'm about to meet with our child's teacher. Tell me what to ask and tell me what books I should be concerned about. And we need every parent worrying about that. We need every parent wondering what books are coming up that they should know about. And we don't have enough of them, but it is really hard to do. And yeah.
Yeah. So your current schooling environment, tell me what you love about it. What's working, kind of, you made a switch. So, and it seems like you're happy, but what do you feel like is really kind of meeting your needs at the moment?
Sure. We took our son out of public school, of course, and we put him in classical school, and we absolutely love it. And this is outside of the fact that they teach a really wonderful curriculum. They have less staff, which I feel like makes the environment at the school, less administrative staff, a much more community environment. I feel like the administration that's there is much more involved in with the children, and they know who those children are. And then I think that they also structure things differently. They have a schedule. It is a complete night and day difference between how our son is reading, just in the way that they structure their group, the way they teach the instruction. It's crazy to see such a huge difference, but we saw it within a month of taking our son from public school and putting him into private. And they also really nurture what children are good at. Something that people don't realize is with public school today, they are teaching to the lowest common denominator. So they're teaching to the children at the lowest level. So kids that are in the middle and kids that are advanced kind of fall out of that. A private school, at least at the school that we put our son in, they really are nurturing. So he's in first grade. He does second grade math, and he is so proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
But they allow that advance, and they really, like I said, nurture it and they encourage it, and he's proud to tell people about it, which is something that's different about public school. Doesn't have that feature, I guess. They don't really have the staff. If they could, I think, too. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Almost more than anything, it's wonderful to hear that he's thriving in an environment, which is what we want for every kid. Every tennis kid, that's what we want.
I mean, if he was thriving in public school, it might be, a totally different conversation. But he was just going, and
Yeah.
playing. Every day he comes home and he was telling us about who he played with and what did he do, and that was fine. But
Mhm.
every day he comes home, he has things he told us about what he's learning. We do actual homework together, which there really wasn't homework in public school, but I think it's great because we do it together.
Mhm.
And parents are really engaged. I feel we are much more included, and I feel like everything is so much more transparent. If I've never had a problem asking a question, and I've always felt really welcomed to ask questions, which is a big difference too.
Yeah.
They want to hear from parents, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
Um, so I'd love to talk a little bit about the organization that you started, about Parents Choice Tennessee. And um, you've talked a little bit about kind of the fuel for where that came from, but talk a little bit about what led you to actually form an organization. So not just advocate for
Right.
your child, but to actually say, oh, this is a bigger problem. I need
Yeah.
to be in leadership around this movement. So talk a little bit about that.
So when I started digging into the curriculum, there was also an organization in California called Let Them Breathe. And Let Them Breathe, they formed 501c3, and they sued the state of California to reopen schools and put kids back in school. And so it just so happened I was standing at a fundraiser for the PTO of our school that my son went to, talking to one of our friends who is, the mother of my son's best friend. She's now one of my very dear friends too, who is a lawyer. And so her and I were talking, and we were like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do about this? Do we take our kids out of school? We were mom to mom kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do, learning about all these books and curriculum and everything. And I said, hey, what do you think if we created an organization and we sued them because they're breaking the law? And
Mm.
she said, well, why don't you come in and talk to my boss, who's a constitutional attorney, and let's, mull it over. Let's talk it out. And I did that. And I walked out of that attorney's office. And within 2 hours, Parents' Choice was created. And we decided that we were going to do a lawsuit. That way we could sue as a group of parents, because I already had a whole bunch of parents coming and asking, and we were all already meeting and talking about this stuff. But so we could sue as a group without being a class action, and so that we could form something that could represent a bunch of parents. Because there are a lot of parents that said, how can we support you? But we can't go to a school board meeting and talk, or our job doesn't let us, or how can we support you? We're grandparents and we have no say really, but we want to have a say and we want better for our grandkids. And there's a lot to do. So then we created the organization, and now here we are.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when was that about
That
approximately?
was 2021. So that was fall, a year and a half ago or so.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's very cool. I mean, that as well as I do that COVID has sort of unleashed a like almost generational type moment where parents of every political stripe
Mm-hmm.
stopped and said, okay, what exactly is my child learning at their local school? How does it function? And I think that's obviously a very good thing. And
Yeah.
I definitely tell a lot of parents that I talk to, a private school or homeschool obviously isn't going to be the best choice for every single child.
Right.
So it's not just to advocate for that. If I could encourage every parent, and I'm a parent, I have 4 kids myself that are all school age, advocating for parents to simply just to pay attention, to take note of their child's school, what their child's learning, and if you're happy, then great, mission
Yeah.
accomplished, basically.
Mm-hmm.
If you are, but that sort of really paying attention and being attentive to your child and what they need at school, because parents normally are that, but with regards
Yeah.
to their school, if that can sort of spread like wildfire, I think that's fuel for the school choice movement, for parents to
Yes.
pay attention. And that's what you're doing with Parents Choice TN. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So this, I saw you down a few times at the legislature. this
Mhm.
spring, which just wrapped up last week. And so I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if you were there a year ago in 22, but I'm personally curious just what your experience was like. And I know you testified once as well. What was
Mhm.
your experience like, and your impression of being down on Capitol Hill, being around the legislature and the legislators, and just what's your takeaway and your initial experience?
Well, I can tell you what, there's not enough women up there, and there is not enough young women. There's not enough young people up there that are conservative. And I think that that's a big deal. And so it is just a different point of view when you have young children. And I think a mother's point of view, there are a lot of legislators that are young, that are dads,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely it's a different viewpoint. But from our lawsuit, I met with legislators like Jack Johnson, who penned the law that we're going after. And so he and I talked a lot. And from that, I just got more and more curious. And of course, I started digging about the laws that we were pursuing. And that just really snowballs into, well, what about this law? And what about this law in this state? And if we had that, maybe it would be a little bit better. Okay, now how do I get that? And so it snowballs into, well, let me go meet the people that are making these laws and let me go ask them. And you make
Yeah.
me a law.
Yeah.
And so I just would go and visit. And I have some friends that have gone up to Capitol Hill a lot. And I started saying, you know what, I'm just going to go. I'm going to start sitting on committees. I'm going to just start meeting with legislators. There were some bills that I was specifically very interested in that are about parents' rights and, of course, about school choice, too, that I paid very close attention to. And I would go into these legislators' office and introduce myself and say, I have, Parents' Choice Tennessee. We're a nonprofit, but we are a big group of parents. And if there's anything parent support that you need on XYZ bill, here's my card. Please call me. I'd be happy to support you. So we're nonprofit. We're not a political organization, but we still are a really large group of parents. There's about 2,000 parents in our group, in our social media and our following and everything. And that's 2,000 parents that can't all show up to a committee meeting. But if I ask them to send emails, we can get a lot of emails sent or to reach out. And that's a big deal. And they need that help. I think they need people up there, we need conservative people that are advocating for parents up there having a voice, because
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot of people on the other side that have a voice up there and are very loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as you know.
Yes. Well, one really exciting thing from the legislative session was our ESA expansion bill. So, quick reminder: ESAs are not like vouchers. ESAs are an account that parents can utilize for a variety of different educational expenses: homeschool, pod school, transportation, private school tuition. And for our ESA expansion bill, it had to be voted on 2 different times in the House. Long story, but basically we got 58 unique votes in favor of this expansion, which is real progress in Tennessee, because
Yep.
we scraped by 50 to 49 in 2019, and we've had some new members come in, some freshmen in the last after this past election that have been really, really great on this issue. And but I think one thing that you touched on about just kind of different generations and age is that I think a lot of a perpetual problem in the school choice kind of movement, and this goes across the country and a lot of other states, is both older and more rural Republicans. They just have a harder time getting there on this issue. And I think a lot of times it is a generational thing, because when they went through their public school system in their county, many decades ago, it was very different. And the system essentially, it worked for them essentially. And it's very, very different now. And it takes a lot of imagination for some of our older legislators to really open their eyes and see the state of things right now. Now you can look at some testing data, TCAP data, and then you don't have to use your imagination. You can look at it, and it's very discouraging. And so, yeah, that's definitely a good point, about it. Yeah, there's definitely some gray hairs up there, and a lot of guys that men and women that have been up there for a long time and have done some really good work. But
Yeah.
the inevitably there's younger generations that are wanting to step up and lead as well.
Yeah. Well, I used to be, so my husband always picks on me. My husband's very conservative, but I used to be a Democrat and I have a progressive education, right? I'm young. I think everybody young these days is probably somehow has a progressive education. And, and more I research like social emotional learning and things like that, the more I realized that was very much in school when I was in school. And so, but at the same time, having that experience and having that viewpoint and then having it change makes me realize where we're in the middle a lot more than people think. This is something that kills me about, being Republican.
Yeah.
Is this is a nonpartisan issue, I think. I think school choice is not a right or left argument. It's really in the middle. This is about kids. And I think if we don't get the voice out on both sides, if we don't push it into a more nonpartisan issue, it's going to be a lot harder to get some of these like really solid old school Republicans.
Right.
And some of these, I would actually say like old school Democrats are probably, more in favor of it too. It's the really progressive Democrats and the old school Republicans that are hanging on, and we need, and they're not educated enough about it. They don't know enough.
Right.
And that's where the problem starts, is they don't know enough. And same with parents, they don't know enough about it to say, hey, we want that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a really good point. And in other states, in Louisiana and Nebraska and a few other states, there are some really key Democratic legislators that have seen the light and that have spoken up very openly and strongly in favor of school choice programs. And so you're absolutely right, 100% right. And that would be my hope as well, to get people to see that this issue actually isn't that difficult, and it's not actually that partisan.
That's right.
That's a good message. Yeah, you should definitely keep pushing that one out.
I will. I'll put it in my back pocket.
What would you say to, so we talked a little bit about ESAs, but charter schools obviously are a part of kind of the school choice movement as well. Metro Nashville Council rejected 3 charter applications at their meeting just a couple of nights ago, because that's really, that's kind of what they do. Now we have a state charter board now that can actually authorize on appeal those rejections, which is good. But so we've got charter schools, we've got ESAs, other states have tax credit scholarships, things like that. But what would you say to people that are still critical of school choice programs? Like what would be some kind of, quick bullet responses?
Well, people that are still critical about it, public schools are never going to improve unless they have competition. Unless they have competition, nothing is ever going to get better because they have a monopoly on it, and they have it's still a business. School and education is still at the end of the day a business. And if they don't have somebody else setting up shop, making them rise to the occasion, then they're going to do whatever they want for however long they want. We need other people's ideas in there. Even a charter school, they see as competition. They shut one, Williamson County denied one last year too, and I got very involved in trying to help them. They were an excellent school, and they would have given a really good choice to parents to just try something different. Parents who are even on the fence of, I don't know if I like that curriculum, but there are a few things I don't like, but it wasn't enough for them to up and move out of public school. They would definitely have signed up to try the charter school though, because I had so many conversations with parents. And then there's the argument of, oh, well, more government control, da 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 da. They need to do some research on exactly what the ESA is and the parameters on it, because it's not a voucher, and everyone calls it a voucher, and it's not.
Right.
And that is a lot of clarity that needs to happen, is people need to understand what it is and how it works. And I think, they need to understand how the school accepts it too, not just how it goes into their account and what they can use it on. They need to know when the school accepts that money, then what happens, because that's a big argument too. Oh, well, the school accepts the money, then the school's going to have to get parameters from the government. Well, that's not exactly the case, and we need to learn that. Um, so yeah, my biggest part is it's never going to improve unless there's competition, unless there are more private schools, unless there are more charter schools, unless there are more magnet schools. We need to see those
Yeah.
too. We have none. There's not one charter school or magnet school in Williamson County.
Mm,
If you look at Florida, there are so many charter schools, magnet schools, private schools. They have ESAs, they have vouchers, they have tax credits, and they have some scholarships.
yeah.
That's something I'd like to see in Tennessee. I would like to see some grants and scholarships along the pipeline with the ESAs, like Florida has and like North Carolina has now.
Yep. Those are great points. Those are great things to say to critics. I've said many of the same things myself. And yeah, I think there's got to be some kind of, it's just human nature. It's not it's not a matter of this group of people is good, this group of people is bad. It's just simply human nature that you need some kind of pressure applied in order to rise, like you said, rise to the occasion.
Yes,
And,
yes. We'll get them. We'll get them there. I think we'll get them there.
yeah, yeah.
We'll get them there.
Yeah, no, my hope is in 20 years, or maybe hopefully sooner than that. I don't know, 15 to 20 years, basically people of all political stripes will look back and be like, oh yeah, of course we all did this. Essentially diversifying K-12 education, spreading, open enrollment, ESAs, magnet schools, charter schools, all of it. And it'll be viewed as nonpartisanly agreed upon in a certain number of years in the future. That's my hope.
Well, they teach so much of there's like this whole child model, and they teach the whole child. Well, everything doesn't work for every child. And I think education right now is so pigeonholed with one size fits all. And that also is a school choice argument, because one size does not fit all. What works for my kid does not work for your kid. And what works for one of your children may not. We have a friend they have 4 children and they are all in different schools. Actually 2 of them are in public school and the other 2 are in private schools, in 2 separate private schools. And so
that's a lot of driving.
That is a lot of driving. I know, they're such nice people. But what fits for one child does not fit for all children, and that is a argument of the books, of the curriculum. That's an argument of the school choice, of the, if we have such limited choices as parents, we're really not doing our kids their best. We're not doing our kids a service if we're not doing the very best for them, because this is all we have as an option, is a public school or school or something like that. We need all the options.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll add to is, AFC, we're focused on school choice writ large, but also, focusing on lower income families for sure. Our ESA here in Tennessee is means tested. That means if a family of 4 makes about $76,000 or below that, then they would qualify. And one thing that's, I think, sort of I've heard critics say, and is that these families, they're not, they're happy with their neighborhood school. They're not banging down my door. If there's anything that I've found in talking to parents, lower income parents, is that if there is a school, if there was an option, they would jump at it. They would jump at it in an instant.
Yes.
And they would,
Absolutely.
and the sort of, obviously community matters, loyalty matters, but when you're talking about your children, if they're a first grader, third grader doesn't feel safe at their neighborhood school, they take another choice in an instant. Immediately. And there are lots and lots of lower income families that would love, absolutely love, and hopefully, and are loving, because
Yeah,
we've already got families enrolling in Davidson and Shelby County.
yeah,
So, yeah, I just wanted to plug that because they do desire options.
absolutely. I was raised by a single mom, so and I went to a magnet high school. That where there's a will, there's a way, and
Right.
parents, will do. My mom drove me 45 to go to a better high school than the one that was, local to us. And it was a great magnet school.
Yeah.
So if we have more of those here, people will come. I really
Yeah.
strongly believe that. I've talked to so many parents. If you build it, they will come.
Mhm.
If we make it available, parents will enroll. And that
Yeah.
was something a lot of legislators said, oh, well, people aren't doing it. Well, because they didn't have a chance or let them get in
Right.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think there
Yeah.
was what, 1,500 applications, I think, right now in the pipeline.
No, well, I mean,
More than that.
since August, the program was declared constitutional in like the third week of July. School started like 10 days later. So, I mean, the timing
Yeah.
was obviously horrible, but since August, we've had 2,200 applications. And so I think enrolled, it's hard to say, I don't want to throw out a number, but we'll have, as of this spring total, we had, I guess, around 450 students enrolled. Once the school year starts in August, that number is going to jump up considerably with all the new enrollees. So,
Exactly. If you build it, they will come, you know.
well, I think we're close to time here, but I guess two questions. What would you say to parents who are reluctant to get involved? They felt the nudge, but they're reluctant. Maybe they think they can't make a difference.
Yeah.
Uh, and actually, no, sorry, that's the question. Not too bad.
Well, you can always be involved, even if it's the smallest thing of sharing something on social media. You can also meet with legislators. They'll all have coffee with you. They'll all meet with you where you're at least your locals. Um, if you ever want to call me, please do. I'll fill you
Yeah.
in with the information. Um, but just find out more, read more about it. And before you say no to school choice, read about what it actually is, not what it is, what you think it is, not what an article says it is, what for us here today, what the state of Tennessee says it is.
Right.
Before you would argue against it, I would say you need to know more about it. And then once you do know more about it, you can get more involved in helping to advocate for it, whether you want to participate in it or whether you just want to see it happen because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Either way, we always need more voices. Like I said, whether it's sharing something on social media or liking it or making phone calls or just speaking to more people about it, the more people talk about it, the more it becomes a real thing and the more it becomes a viable option for us, the more people will get behind it, I think.
Yeah. And what you said, I think a lot of people don't really realize that if they call their elected representative, your state
Mm-hmm.
house member, state senator, they will get coffee with you. I mean, they
Yes.
want to hear from their constituents. They will usually really try to make time, and what their constituents think matters because they want to continue serving. They want to get reelected, and
Right.
so yeah, that's that a lot of people don't. They just sort of think they're too busy, or I'm not
No, they're
not
not too
important
busy.
enough or something. But they definitely do want to hear.
Yes, they do. They really do. Even when you're not their constituent, they will still open their door to you. And I have not had anybody ever tell me no, maybe not right now, and let's schedule
Mhm.
something. But every single legislator, even Democrats that I've talked to, have given me time to hear my spiel, which
Yeah,
I appreciate, which is what I think they should
yeah,
be doing. And they have. So I'm glad for that.
yeah. Well, I think we're at about time. But if parents or anybody is interested in finding out more about Parents Choice Tennessee,
Yeah.
where would they go? And I think we can probably put a link on the screen here when we kind of post this. So, but website, anything else, social media handles.
Yeah, it's parentschoicetennessee.org, all spelled out. And then at Parents Choice TN, we are on Instagram. You'll see a lot of curriculum we share on there and things like, things that are going on. And like I said, we're not a political organization, but we do share updates on what's going that affects schools and education. And then on Facebook, we also have a private group on Facebook that if you join our page, we can add you to the group where we have a lot more discussion. There's a lot of parents in there that ask, hey, this is going on in my county. Does anybody know? Or, hey, what do I do? There's a lot of great discussion that happens in that group. All of those are linked on our website too. And so is our lawsuit. Our lawsuit's on the website if you'd like to read it. Very informative. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, I
Mhm.
really appreciate your time, Trisha. Definitely appreciate your work here in Tennessee, and definitely look forward to crossing paths a lot more. And I hope everybody's found this informative and very helpful in our school choice movement.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Trisha. Have a good day.
You too.